The award-winning American mezzo-soprano Joyce Donato has an album out of Handel's mad scene arias. It's called Furore. So that is the character Deianira from Handel's opera Hercules. Joyce, you play a lot of challenging roles, women on the edge. How close to the edge is Deianira in Hercules?
Oh, the edge is far behind her, I'm afraid.
Topples over.
She's crossed way over. What's interesting about this character in the opera, she starts in quite a low, depressed place, and she's quite fragile at the beginning. And through the course of the 3.5 hours, she's descending even more. And then this final scene, she's quite mad.
What's happened to her?
She has lost her husband. She's actually accidentally killed him. And there's an argument to be made whether it was an actual accident or not. But she gave him the poisoned cloak covered in the blood of Nexus that she thought was supposed to actually help him, and in fact kills him. But the real psychology of her is she actually has a big bout of jealousy that is essentially imagined on her part, that he's been unfaithful to her. And her jealousy, once she really goes into that dangerous territory, she just can't come back.
It's all in a day's work for you, but it's it's quite strong stuff, this, isn't it?
Quite.
As a young girl in Kansas, how far removed was your daily life from this kind of dramatic tussle that you portray on a nightly basis?
Well, I don't know. I have a niece that's an adolescent, 16, going through high school. And I'm not sure it was so far removed from what my high school experience as well.
What about Handel's relationship with women? Do you believe that he really understood the way women work?
There's still a lot unknown about Handel in his personal life and his relationship with women. It astonishes me, actually, that a man from 250 years ago could be inside the mind of a woman. He understands the strength, which overlaps with vulnerability. I don't know how he gets that in his music, but he does. The most vulnerable woman summoning up this incredible strength. It's unbelievable. I don't know a single other composer that gets it, and the fragility and the complexity of her as much as Handel.
This is Medea from Tessio with Dolce Riposo. When you first saw opera, well, actually, when was it, and what did you see, and what did you make of it?
I heard opera on the Metropolitan Opera broadcasts, but it was usually from my upstairs room while my dad was playing it downstairs, and I was trying to play my Sean Cassidy recordings over it because I didn't like it.
Sean Cassidy.
Sean Cassidy.
That's really bad. With David, I might have forgiven you, but
Oh, Sean, no, he was much cuter than David.
I've forgotten about Sean, but anyway, go on.
Now I'm blushing.
Sorry, there you are.
But my father would try and get me listen to it, and I just didn't understand the sound. It wasn't beautiful to me. I didn't get it. It was a language I didn't understand. But it was a PBS public broadcasting thing that showed a live opera from the Met, and it was Don Giovanni, funny enough. And the piece I remember that just hooked me was Carol Van Ness singing Non mi dir. She was performing Donna Anna, and she was still, and these phrases of endless breath just came pouring out of her, and I thought, wow, that's an astonishing thing. And that's, I think, what really turned me onto it. I was 20 years old.
So that's relatively old, isn't it? I mean,
relatively.
So you weren't somebody who was passionately into opera from the age of 11 or 12 then?
No, not quite the opposite, actually. And it wasn't till I was 21 or 22 that I thought, I'm going to actually investigate this and see what this is like.
You are performing at the moment at the Wigmore Hall in London, which I think has some pretty special memories for you. Not all of them great, actually, because you were in a singing competition there, weren't you, back in the 90s?
97, actually. And I was just getting started and finishing my training and just eking my way into the professional world. And I was coming off of a year of really great, encouraging remarks from people, and jobs were starting to trickle in. So I was sort of riding very high, and I came to do this competition. And I made it through to the semifinal round, and I was able to meet with the judges afterwards and get comments. And the panel basically said to me very dryly, very coolly, "Ah, yes, Miss Donato, we just thought you didn't have anything to say as an artist." it was a knife in my stomach, turning slowly. It was really hard because I thought, well, okay, if I have nothing to say, I guess I should shut up and find, an accounting job or something. But, with a little bit of perspective and time after that, I realized, I know now, I think what they were saying is I arrived as a very polished singer. I was doing everything I was supposed to do. Everything was correct, probably a bit of a veneer over it. It actually made me sit back and actually really say, okay, I better make sure I know what I'm saying and that it's my voice and it's not a teacher that's telling me how to do it. And that's, I think, my real driving force as an artist is a real desire to communicate. So ultimately, I think the judges gave me a gift. They made me look that much further inside myself.
You still hate them, though, don't you?
It wasn't easy to hear. No, it wasn't easy to hear.
Do you think about them and what they said when you're packing the Wigmore Hall? At the moment, there must be an element of satisfaction on your part that
the first time I did it, it was a big thumb on my nose to the panel, and I thought, see, I showed you. Now that I go back, it's much less that. I don't even feel that anymore, but it's the sense of, I've really earned my place to come here, and the gratitude that I feel that, not so long ago I was told, basically, shut up, we don't find it interesting, to then be opening the Wigmore Hall season. Yeah, that felt really good.
You're in Don Giovanni. The idea of the Royal Opera House trying to attract a new audience, getting performances piped into cinemas, making cheap tickets available via tabloid newspapers. Is this the right way to attract a fresh audience? Will it work?
Well, I'm 100% behind anything that brings in new people into the theater. For me, there's a couple things that have to happen. I think it has to be done in really high quality because you don't want to do it halfway in high definition across Europe in cinemas, and people, they come in and they say, oh, well, it looks a little shoddy. You have to invest the money and do it in the right way. I think it's fabulous that they went after these Sun readers, and because I'll tell you, from a performer standpoint, this audience was so surprised at what they were seeing on the stage. The seasoned opera goer is not surprised any longer by Don Giovanni and what he does and how he treats the women and the men in this show, unless it's a really scandalous production. And then we all clamor and say, oh, it's terrible, they were doing drugs on the stage or things. But, what we seasoned people are trying to get is that shock value again and the discovery of these pieces. What the Sun audience had in a very traditional production was the shock of the piece itself, of how bad Don Giovanni is, and of how vividly the music puts that through. So my gospel about this is that I do not think at all that we have to dumb down the art form to get people in. I think that's the biggest mistake in the world, that we have to sort of sugarcoat it and pretend that it's not opera, pretend that we're not doing something quite heroic on the stage, because from my opinion, I trust this art form so much, and I trust the music, and I trust the stories, and I trust the performers that what we're doing is something extraordinary. And I'm not saying I'm an extraordinary person, but the actual field that we bring hundreds of people together on the stage, that we're singing without amplification, and that we're singing these characters that are larger than life, I think that's the most thrilling thing in the world. So I think if we do our job well, don't dumb down, but in fact make it better and better all the time, that people, if they're tricked into coming into the opera house or into buying a cheaper ticket in the cinema, that when they go, their mind is going to be blown and say, God, this is amazing. I need to go back.
I think you've just done a great selling job there. That was fantastic. Joyce, you've been quoted as saying that it's a good job you never met Leonard Bernstein, because if you had, you'd have completely lost everything to him, fallen madly in love. Why is that?
Well, he has to be one of the most charismatic, passionate people that has ever been in this business, certainly of the last 50 years. And that's something that is definitely a turn on to me. You see the way he embraced people and all this. And I think he put so much into his music.
If you had to perform one song of his,
Extinguish My Eyes, it has this pulsating, restless passion under it.
Extinguish my eyes, I still can see you. Close my ears, I can hear your footsteps.
The incredible voice of Joyce Di Donato singing Bernstein's love poem Extinguish My Eyes.